In February of 1920, Bella was born into communist Russia. Her father, David Itkin, was a member of the Moscow Art Theater's Jewish theater Habima, and, as Bella would attest, was responsible for inspiring her to love theater from a very early age. She saw her first play in Russia at her father's side and described it during an interview in 2005.
Well, at the age of 6, my father, David Itkin, of the Moscow Art Theater, took me to see a play called The Bluebird. All I wanted to do was get on the stage. And the magic of the lights and the magic of the children in the play were so overpowering that I really couldn't sit still very well. My dad kept putting his hand on me. I fell in love with the idea of the magic of it, not the hard work that goes into it, but the magic of theater.
In 1932, at age 12, Bella came to the U.S. with her mother Lena and sister Iza. They traveled from Moscow to Riga, Latvia, Paris, New York, and finally reunited with her father in Chicago. The transition was not without difficulty.
I didn't have any time to do a lot of play acting. It was just trying to grow up in a new environment, new people, new language. Then finally finishing high school and finally finding my own that I really wanted to do. And I wanted to study acting. And I wanted to act. At first I went to 6040 Lake Street theater department that my father was running, and also the academics I was getting there. And my first teacher was my father.
Now, was this part of the Goodman, or?
No, 6040 Lake Street.
And that was DePaul University, or?
He was the chairman of the evening division. He was teaching there and teaching at the Goodman. And he decided I should start the Goodman in my second year, and the faculty agreed, and I became as a second-year student at Goodman.
After completing her undergraduate degree, Bella received her MFA in directing from the Goodman School of Drama in 1943 and became a full-time faculty member at the school. In 1944, Bella founded the Lake Zurich Playhouse, a regional theater that provided a summer home away from home and early visibility for some of the most talented actors of the day.
When I ran a summer theater, Lake Zurich, Illinois, that was shortly after the Second World War. And a group of the graduates were mostly GIs and wanted me to be the artistic director. And we started with almost nothing. We used to have rentals at the Goodman. And Dr. Neeson gave us the money from the two houses so we could start our summer theater. And we had an outhouse. We had to scrub down the scenery. We did everything. I mean, I was in charge of casting, working out the KP duty, who was going to be the cook. Where we lived, you couldn't get a lot of food at the time, shortly after the war, but the food stamps were very much still there for meat and stuff like that. We had our own tickets, made out our own programs. The typewriter was very busy. We didn't have all the magic that occurs now. You just put it in and everything comes out. That paper didn't deal that way at that time. And the house was about 150 maybe, not very large house. But we came out pretty well. My businessman was Geraldine Page's first husband, Ed Nichols. He was also a director, but he was very good in the business end because I was lousy in the business end. And I think I ran that place for 5 years, but I also made a point of acting, at least in one play, a season. I've learned a lot from my students, a great deal. Now I think, and maybe it's because of all the years of experience, which are 60, just a little bit, I have learned to sit back, not actually, but just psychologically, and meet them as a friend. Then I saw him, and I asked Larry one day, I was sitting in his office, is he married? Like all the men coming from that institute were married. He said, no. I said, oh. And then Frank asked me to have coffee with him. And I looked at him, and I saw something very honest in his eyes that I have not seen in a man I dated ever before. As I said, I was 47, and he was 53. And one thing led to another. We went out together. He came to see my performances, and I met his family. And within 6 months, he asked me to marry him. And the one thing about influences you were asking me, when I mentioned Sandy Meisner as my first influence later, and Frank was an influence where he always used to talk about patient. He was a very patient man. And he tried to teach me about being patient and not so energetic, you know, the whole thing. And I think I learned some of that from him. It was a very lovely, lovely time of my life.
Bella went on to receive her doctorate from Case Western University. Her book was published by Harper & Collins in 1994 and defined an acting technique based on sensory experience.
Okay, what's your least favorite word?
I think silence.
What's your favorite curse word?
Fuck or shit.
What turns you?
Well, it is.
Something a little
I know.
inappropriate about
Bella, what turns you on?
As a director,
No, as a person.
oh. Well, I mean, you know, although I'm 85, but what turns me on when I see a very masculine man, that turns me on.
What turns you off?
Oh, people pretend to be what they're not.
What sound do you love?
Music,
What sound do you hate?
I hate noise.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh, I suppose being a musician.
What profession would you not like to attempt?
Being a musician, because I don't think I'm qualified. Well, what's funny about that?
Nothing, Bella.
No. Okay, is there more?
I think that's it.